Yeah. Madam Speaker, the member from Portland Western is ready for us to proceed to the sectorial. Yeah. Yeah, but there, that's...
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me just start by saying that nothing is going to spoil my presentation this afternoon. Permission to speak from a seat other than my own. Permission to
My
speak
apologies.
from a seat other than my own.
Permission granted, Minister.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I said before, I won't allow anybody or anything to spoil my presentation of substance this afternoon. Madam Speaker, first of all, before I start, let me just say how saddened I am on learning of the passing of my colleague, Member of Parliament, Minister, and Deputy Treasurer of the Jamaica Labour Party, Mr. Leslie Campbell. On behalf of my family and myself, I wish to pay condolences to his family, entire family. I'm sure that he will be dealt with according to House rules. I rise today in this honorable House with gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility as we chart the path forward for the critical sectors under my portfolio: energy, transport, and telecommunications. These sectors are the backbone of our national development, driving innovation, strengthening connectivity, and improving efficiency in service to the people of Jamaica. Before I begin, I pause to acknowledge those whose support make this possible for me. I want to thank the Almighty for the strength to serve the people of Jamaica. To my dear and awesome wife, Anne-Marie, my children, 5 grandchildren and climbing, family, and friends, your unwavering support fuels my commitment to public service. I thank you for your patience, your sacrifices, and your constant encouragement. To the leadership and dedicated staff of the Ministry of Energy, Transport, and Telecommunications, your expertise, professionalism, and hard work form the foundation of the ministry's progress. I extend a special welcome to the new Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Kadisha Campbell-Rochester, and thank her, along with the senior managers, technical teams, and administrative staff, for your continued service to nation. I also acknowledge former Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Carol Palmer, who I worked with from 2020, and thank her for her steadfast leadership prior to her retirement in December 2025. Madam Speaker, I remain deeply appreciative of our board members and advisors whose insight and guidance continue to shape the policies and achievements of the ministry that I will outline today. To my CPOs, I thank you always for your steadfast support, which allows me to effectively balance my ministerial duties and my role as Member of Parliament. I'm grateful not only to you, but to your families for the sacrifices that you make. To the staff across all agencies, departments under this ministry, you are the driving force behind implementation and success of all that we have accomplished in the last financial year. Whether in offices, telecommunication networks, or transport hubs, your contributions are vital and deeply valued. To the people of West Portland, who have entrusted me with the privilege of representation over the last many years, I remain committed to your development and well-being. Your voices continue to guide my work, and I thank you for your confidence. Many of them are here and have been here every year since 2007. So I can, Madam Speaker, say that I am definitely a senior, as I first came here in 2007, returned in 2008 after a by-election, 11, 2016, 2020, 2025. I would expect at least an acknowledgement. When I look across, just right in front of me, not too far, in this very, I see people who have gone all around Jamaica and have jumped from seat to seat and gone from east to west. Thank goodness, that's not me. As I proceed today with today's sectoral presentation, let us remain focused on the task ahead, advancing policies and initiatives that will strengthen our economy, improve our service delivery, and transform lives, particularly in these turbulent and uncertain times. Resilience in action. Extreme times require extreme actions and extreme responses. With the leadership of the Most Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, I am more than confident that Jamaica will continue to prosper despite the setbacks of COVID, Beryl, and Melissa. Madam Speaker, the true measure of leadership is not how we govern in moments of calm, but how we act amid uncertainty and competing demands of crisis. As Minister of Energy, Transport, and Telecommunications, I remain committed to a model of leadership that requires careful balance between the welfare of our people, the rigors of good governance, and the realities of political stability in making decisive actions, even in the face of criticism. Extreme times require extreme actions and responses. Throughout the fiscal year, the key sectors under my portfolio, energy, transport, and telecommunications, have continued to advance despite the global and domestic uncertainties. Indeed, these gains have not been achieved in the absence of uncertainty, but with hard work by the civil servants within my ministry. I will begin with the energy sector, which continues to be profoundly impacted by the current geopolitical climate. And I will also respond to my colleague, Member of Parliament, Opposition spokesperson. Madam Speaker, as I rise to outline the achievements of the ministry and its agencies, take the opportunity to update the Honourable House and the country on the energy portfolio for financial year 25-26. It is important to situate Jamaica's progress within the context of a rapidly evolving and increasingly uncertain global energy landscape. Jamaica continues to experience sustained increases in fuel prices, driven by upward movements in the U.S. Gulf Coast benchmark, the primary reference for refined petroleum products across the region. Madam Speaker, even as we respond to these immediate pressures, we must remain focused on the long-term solution. A global energy transition is underway. It underscores the urgency for countries like Jamaica to strengthen energy security, diversify energy sources, and accelerate the shift towards sustainable, affordable, and reliable energy for all. Madam Speaker, Jamaica continues to advance its oil and gas exploration program by United Oil and Gas as part of a broader strategy to strengthen energy security and diversify our energy mix. While the contract was signed in 2014 under the previous administration, it is important to note that detailed execution, stakeholder alignment, and ultimate progress has occurred from 2016 to present. Multiple surveys and new findings. Challenges presented by COVID and a downturn in global oil and gas exploration caused severe delays to the project. But I can ultimately say the most recent preliminary findings are positive. United Oil and Gas continues its search for partners in the license to move to the next phase of the operation, which will be drilling a well. Madam Speaker, just in layman's term, if you allow me, it is usually between 10 and 30% probability for finding successfully finding oil or gas. You start out at 10% probability, 90%. You move from 10 to 30. 30 pretty much is the highest that you would go in relation to saying that you have the best probability of finding gas and oil. I'm happy to say that we started at 10% in 2016, and with the recent surveys, we would have reached 30%, which would mean that we will have interested parties to partner with United Oil and Gas, hopefully in due course. So I remain hopeful and cautiously optimistic. Let me put it no further than that. So further to developments in April this year, the latest updates from the ongoing exploration activities continue to support a cautiously optimistic outlook, while underscoring the need for careful, evidence-based progression at each phase of the process. The government remains measured in its approach, recognizing that any discovery would require significant investment, probably 60 to 80 million US to drill one well, and we would have 14 rigorous environmental safeguards and a clear regulatory framework to guide development. Importantly, this initiative is being pursued in a balanced manner, ensuring that exploration efforts align with Jamaica's national commitment to environmental protection. Madam Speaker, the Generation Procurement Entity has launched the largest renewable tender ever undertaken in the Caribbean, initially comprising of 220 megawatts of renewables, paired with 110 megawatts of battery storage. Madam Speaker, building on a strong market interest and the government of Jamaica's commitment to accelerating the energy transition, this has now increased this number to 300 megawatts of renewable energy and 150 megawatts of battery storage, with the tender scheduled for August 2026. This builds on the 100 megawatts of solar capacity awarded in 2024, bringing total renewable additions to 400 megawatts. Taken together, these investments represent a decisive step toward enhancing energy security, reducing exposure to global oil price volatility, and advancing Jamaica's transition to a more resilient, sustainable, and diversified energy mix. In parallel, the government is advancing an additional 100 megawatts of distributed renewable energy through a strengthened net billing program, empowering households and businesses to generate their own electricity. The net billing program terms of reference has been completed and is being modernized through the introduction of a fully online application platform expected to be operational later this year. This platform will support the acceleration of net billing. Additionally, discussions have started with the Jamaica Public Service to increase the net billing threshold and to incorporate battery storage into the program. The ministry is also reviewing license fees and system capacity limits of 10 kilowatts for residential and 100 megawatts for commercial systems with mandated battery storage, including the integration of battery storage to better support modern energy needs such as electric vehicle charging. Jamaica currently generates about 15% of its electricity from renewable sources. Ongoing and planned projects are expected to add roughly 35 percentage points, helping the country reach its 50% renewable energy targets by 2030, not only in Jamaica, but also the Caribbean. Now, so, Madam Speaker, let me just remind you that it was originally 30% by 2030, and the Prime Minister in a meeting gave a directive that we must move it from 30 to 50, which is a very ambitious target. But of course, he has the right minister to get it done. Madam Speaker, structural reforms are advancing in parallel. The power wheeling regulations have been completed and gazetted, with final discussions underway to settle the tariffs and billing arrangements, so implementation can begin shortly. This will allow more participants to access trade electricity across the grid. At the same time, the updated national energy policy, along with the supporting action plan and sub-policy, is being finalized for submission to Cabinet. I'm happy to say that I signed that submission today before coming to Parliament. This policy sets a clear pathway towards a modern energy system that is secure, reliable, affordable, and sustainable. It addresses key national priorities, including expanding access to the remaining 5% of Jamaicans without electricity, improving system efficiency, maintaining affordability, and strengthening resilience to natural disasters. In practical terms, Madam Speaker, this is about building an energy system that works for the Jamaican people, one that reduces cost over time, supports economic growth, and protects us from external shocks. Madam Speaker, on restoration, the response to Hurricane Melissa stands as a strong example of national resilience. With the support of 18 Carolec partners, Jamaica restored electricity to 98% of its customers within 3.5 months, improving to 99.6 as of April 20th, 2026. Full restoration is on track for April, except in cases where customers cannot yet safely receive power. Madam Speaker, this program did not happen by chance. The $150 million loan approved in December was critical in accelerating recovery and avoiding a scenario where restoration could have stretched into late 2026 or even early 2027. Madam Speaker, there has been a lot of flip-flops surrounding the speed and accountability. I went back to the Hansard to remind this Honorable House of what the leader of the opposition said in November 2025 in regards to the JPS loan. Here is what he said from Hansard. I would like your assurance, Minister, that the $200 million will be coughed up by JPS, perhaps by its two large overseas shareholders, Maritime and East West Power, Korean government, South Korean government, owned large utility, or JPS is going to draw down on whatever funding it can raise from its creditors. I don't know how they plan to fund it, but we need to know it's funded before we put in our $150 million in. Madam Speaker, he went on to state that it's a risk we are not prepared to take as a country. Thankfully, Madam Speaker, the results of September 3rd installed a government that knows how to dance in the rain. A government capable of assessing risk and responsibility. Those are his words, Madam Speaker. The other member of the opposition, including the member from St. Catherine Southeastern, in a statement filled with more flaws than ours, said we should measure opportunity cost of fast-tracking the restoration by providing a loan to the JPS.
Minister, hold a moment, please. Leader of the opposition, quick question. Are you standing on a point of order? All right. Opposition leader, you know our practice in respect of point of order. I am going to allow you to go ahead. I'm going to recirculate what really is a point of order. Opposition leader, I am sure you appreciate with the discipline that we would like to instill going forward from both sides of the House, that between points of order and what we normally treat as a point, I can actually have this discussion when somebody on the government side rise to their feet. You know, it really doesn't matter who is on their feet. So it has nothing to do with the opposition leader. All right. It is a general statement for us in the parliament. So a lot of what we call point of orders are actually interruptions because of other reasons, clarification, disagreement. Points of orders are not to be used in that way. And therefore, when you stand on the basis that we usually use, it is only if the member chooses to sit and allow you to continue that you continue. It is not the speaker, opposition leader, it is not the speaker who gives you the authority to do so. Only on genuine points of order does the speaker or the chair gives authority. And for those who are grumbling in the House who refuse to learn, For those grumbling in the House who refuse to learn, I have no challenge because I will continue to apply the rules and the standing orders. So, thanks for your patience, Opposition Leader. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The Minister has selectively quoted an excerpt from Hansard, which to make a point, which is misleading the House. Those comments that I made were in the context of his own representation to the House, that the necessary financing to fix the problems that the hurricane had caused on the grid was 350 million US. And my point simply was, if it's 350 million US, how are you going to finance that? To draw down on a portion of it, which was inadequate to do the job, was imprudent. That's the point I made. And to put it in any other way is misleading the House.
Clock.
Your mic was not on, Minister. Hold on a moment, Minister.
This is a point of order on which I rise. If the member will yield. Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition rose on a point of order. What is your ruling, Madam Speaker?
Well, you know already, Prime Minister, this is not a point of order.
What order of the House of debate was breached?
No.
If the Leader of the Opposition continues
the House is not a point of order.
The point of order to disrupt debates, Madam Speaker, that is an abuse of the rules of the House. So, Madam Speaker, I ask you to rule on whether or not the point raised by the Leader of the Opposition breached any rules of debate in the House.
No, it does not, Prime Minister. So members who are grumbling prior, the reason I made sure to state this is exactly that. Please read Standing Order 34. Minister, I apologize for breaking your stride in your presentation. Minister, I'm asking you to sit because Minister, I'm asking you to sit. You will get your time. We'll go into that next, Member Campbell, so we can go down that road after. So, Standing Orders 34 speak to interruptions. Interruptions subject to the provision of Standing Orders 26, 38, and 39, which speaks to privilege motion, closure of debate, and previous questions. A member shall not interrupt another member except, and this is the challenge that we have been having. Persons believe that you can interrupt, that you can shout cheer, 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 and you must be heard. Persons believe that you can speak without your mic being turned off. You are not based on the standing orders, not based on what accords across the Commonwealth. Some members, it says except by raising a point of order, which is what we use. Whereupon the member speaking, for those who choose not to listen, respectfully, I am asking you to at least allow those who would like to hear to do so. Subject to the provision, a member shall not interrupt another member except by rising to a point of order, whereupon the member speaking shall resume his seat, and the member interrupting shall simply direct attention to the point of order which he desires to bring to notice. No, what we do, we actually make a statement that the person mislead, and then we go and have a debate about what they have misrepresented. That has been our practice. So it's not what was done by our opposition leader. Members, could I finish? To the point which he desires to bring to notice and submit it to the Speaker or Chair for a decision or breach of rules. Now, another interruption can be done. It is not a point of order. This interruption is to elucidate some matter raised by the member in the course of a speech. Elucidate, which is, if you're asking, could you explain because I'm not understanding? But only if the member, and for those on the opposition benches who refuse to listen, I hope it is appreciated when the standing orders are followed, that it is the standing orders that rule the House. So if you do not understand the rules, I will not continue to argue. Members, to elucidate some matter raised by, that member in the course of his speech, but only if the member speaking is willing to yield. So our practice of just point of order, and then we use it as a mechanism to break the stride of someone speaking, to have them divert from their presentation to give a long soliloquy teaching. It is not supposed to be done by any side. No problem. So until we learn what is a point of order, and you think it is actually very sweet to continue what you are doing, you will know it was not a point of order, and we will get there. Minister, I'm gonna give the extra time, Minister, and we continue. No. That was the statement made before. Turn your mic on, please, Minister.
Madam Speaker.
Go ahead.
Madam Speaker, I'm happy to know that I'll get back the time. And I want to say, Madam Speaker, that I invite every member here to look at Hansard in relation to that particular day and that particular speech. And what you will get from it is the fact that the $150 million that this government dispersed to JPS through a loan would never have been done if that side was where we are today in government. Absolutely not. And without fear of contradiction. And to add to that what I just said a while ago is that what would have really happened is that you would not get restoration until the end of this year into 2027. And it's not me say so, it's JPS who has said so. So again, Madam Speaker, I say that good decision was made by the cabinet of the country. Madam Speaker, other members of the opposition, including the member from St. Catherine Southeastern, in a statement filled with more flaws than ours, said we should measure the opportunity cost instead of fast-tracking the restoration by providing the loan to JPS. I say to the people of Western Jamaica, had we listened to the opposition then, you still would all be out without light and water for several more months to come. On that note, Madam Speaker, the initial JPS timeline for restoration without JPS, without the $150 million loan, was October to December 2026, which has been revised. And let me state for the record, the utility provider estimated that without the loan, restoration to many of the communities that opposition members are complaining about would have been delayed to approximately January to June 2027. I'll soon give you some better details. Madam Speaker, let me make it abundantly clear that this government...
Minister, I'm very sorry to be breaking you again because I made the effort to use the time to explain how point of orders work. let me again make a formal ruling. A formal ruling. My ruling is no point of order was raised by the leader of the opposition. No point of order was raised by the leader of the opposition. No rule of the House was broken. Now, because we keep having this discussion, and I would like to give the opposition as much latitude as is possible, since we continue to abuse and refuse to obey what is a point of order, I will ask the member to approach the bench so that I can understand what it is that he's being, yes, very much so, which the standing orders permit.
Honestly, there are so many new persons in the house who could benefit from what this people is saying about our country. I don't want to listen, I don't want to hear. I don't know everything in the book, you know. I don't know everything in the book. And how when practice certain things it's wrong, at least let me hear. You just come, I would like to hear what she's saying. You just come, let me hear. No, so let's learn, that's the point. That's the point. Let's learn together. That's the point. Let's learn. Let's learn.
Tanya?
Member Smith, a moment of your time, please. Members, in the interest of time, I am going to ask the member. I'm going to ask the member from St. Andrew Northwest to take the chair while I spend some time in discussion with the opposition members. Thank you, members. Please accept my excuse.
Minister.
A private conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me borrow a phrase used by the Prime Minister in his budget presentation. Ain't nobody going to break my stride. None at all. None at all. I notice, Mr. Speaker, how calm I am. It's against my personality. But I know the ploy And I want to give the people of Jamaica the good information that they are looking for from a good government, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me make it abundantly clear that this government has provided no further funding to JPS outside of the $150 million. And not only has electricity been restored to over 99% of Jamaicans, but critical infrastructure, including water, ATM service, hospitals, and other critical services were restored as well. But it gets better, Madam Speaker. As of this morning, May 5th, the number of customers without power across Jamaica is 1,343. So we are now at 99.81%, Prime Minister. The parish breakdown for remaining customers is Westmoreland, 1,283, St. Elizabeth, 60. Of the remaining customers to be restored, approximately 40%, 538, are not ready to receive power safely due to property-related damage, leaving approximately 805 customers who can receive electricity service still to be restored. Remaining work has been severely impacted by difficult terrain, limited access to remote areas, adverse weather, and challenging ground conditions, which continue to slow the progress. The final phase of restoration will proceed at a measured pace with smaller daily gain. Madam Speaker, JPS restoration performance after a Category 5 Melissa has been nothing short of outstanding. When you benchmark with other utilities, the data shows clearly that JPS's performance is nearly twice as good as its peers in other developing countries, and almost on par with the best-in-class utilities in developed countries with far more resources. Let us step back a moment and compare our post-Melissa experience here in Jamaica with Puerto Rico after they got hit by Category 4 Hurricane Maria in 2017. Puerto Rico, as you know, is a little smaller than Jamaica, but has GDP 7 times of Jamaica and the support of the United States of America. Here in Jamaica, 2 months after we got a direct hit by a Category 5, 90% of JPS customers had electricity. In Puerto Rico, 2 months after it was hit by Hurricane Maria, 40% of their customers had electricity. It took Puerto Rico almost a full year to get electricity back to 99% of their customers after Hurricane Maria. JPS accomplished 99% in 4 months. As a 4-month mark, Puerto Rico was at 57%. Here in Jamaica, we can proudly celebrate that the fact in approximately 6 months after the most devastating hurricane in our record, 99.8% of customers have been restored. As I said, as of today, 1,343 out of almost 700,000 customers are still without power. However, those communities, about 800, are ready to receive supply at this point, and we won't stop until everyone is connected. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to pause to applaud the JPS President Hugh Grant and the entire JPS team for a best-in-class restoration performance, which will be a case study by many countries near and far for decades to come. I thank them on behalf of the entire country, and especially those in the hardest hit parishes. Mr. Speaker, the collaboration between a proactive government and JPS has been nothing short of exceptional. And to those naysayers, I simply say, commitment made, argument done. Madam Speaker, there is no time more important than now to strategically position Petrojam with Jamaica's energy future. As the only operational petroleum refinery in the region, Petrojam is a critical national asset with significant strategic value, not only for Jamaica, but for the wider Caribbean. Its geographic location and refining capability provides a unique opportunity to strengthen energy security while expanding regional influence. For 26-27 financial year, Petrojam is projecting total sales of 12.5 0.21 million barrels, with 7.2 million barrels allocated to domestic market and 4.9 for export. This dual role ensures reliable local supply while generating valuable foreign exchange earnings. Very important, Mr. Speaker, for the country to listen to this. Between March 12th and April 8th, transport fuel prices rose by about $49.20 per litre. Only $18 of that was passed on to consumers due to government's pricing cap. The remaining cost was absorbed by Petrojam to cushion households and businesses. Madam Speaker, that is a buffer of about 8.6 million US, approximately 1.3 to 1.4 billion worth of protection that this government has provided for the average Jamaicans during this energy crisis. So Madam Speaker, when the opposition leader rises and tells Jamaican people that gas is cheaper than water, I would urge him to be reminded that 63% of that cost is not being passed on to the consumer. While the buffer is effective, the intervention is costly, with projections reaching as high as $11.8 billion by June 2026, if maintained. As a result, the government is looking carefully at introducing a revised tiered pricing system to better reflect global market challenges while managing price volatility and other areas of concern. Madam Speaker, Petrojam is not standing still. The company is investing 15 million US critical infrastructure upgrades, including electrical improvements, new storage capacity installations, and major furnace rehabilitation to strengthen reliability and long-term performance. Madam Speaker, looking ahead, the government is actively exploring to further optimize Petrojam's role through strategic partnerships, diversification, and potential public-private collaboration. This includes examining cleaner fuel options such as LNG, expanding renewable integration with operations, and aligning with broader climate and sustainability goals. In essence, Madam Speaker, Petrojam is just not a refinery. It's a strategic national asset that must be leveraged wisely to support energy security, economic resilience, and Jamaica's long-term development. Madam Speaker, over the last few years, the ministry has embarked on a program of electricity sector reforms, recognizing its low capability. The ministry sought and engaged international expertise through the Inter-American Development Bank. In March 25, we engaged the services of Francis Maud Associates to assist with a rigorous analysis and review of the electricity sector, with specific reference to an all-island electricity license and the robust regulation of the sector. This was achieved through funding from the Energy Management and Efficiency Program. Phase 1 was assignment provided a very detailed report outlining a detailed timed plan of action. This report was analyzed and accepted by the ministry and submitted for cabinet decision for the way forward. The position was taken to have a new license, being mindful of citizen welfare and the national interest, specifically lower cost, energy costs to consumers, and a competitive energy price for the industry. The consulting firm was again engaged in November 25 with GOJ funding, and the activities towards an acceptable license continued in earnest. At this point, Cabinet has approved a heads of terms for the new license, which is to be negotiated with JPS subject to the execution of a non-disclosure agreement between the company and GOJ. At the same time, a review of the Electricity Act and the regulatory framework is to be done to give effect to the new license regime. It is to be noted, Mr. Speaker, that as we already outlined, if there can be no agreement with JPS, we will approach the international market to identify a provider. The electricity license negotiation team awaits the signing of the NDA to proceed with the negotiations. At the same time, the process is underway to engage international legal counsel to support the process as the ministry strives to achieve the most efficient and effective process. A white paper for electricity sector reform has been drafted and is now subject to review. Naturally, the white paper will be brought to Parliament as soon as Cabinet approval is obtained. Madam Speaker, obviously, Mr. Speaker, you will understand that in a sensitive time like this with negotiations, I give you an outline, obviously, making sure that it doesn't compromise the negotiations going forward. During the last financial year, the ministry allocated $1 billion, never seen before, to the Jamaica Social Investment Fund under a MOU with the objective of support to energy poverty. This is in addition to the over $200 million allocated to JSIF under the Rural Electrification Program. This is a part of efforts to address non-technical losses, and which all members of Parliament are very aware of. Madam Speaker, collectively these investments form part of a broader national strategy to expand equitable access to electricity, address non-technical losses, and improve the quality of life for the vulnerable households, an initiative with which all 63 members of Parliament are very familiar. The National Energy Poverty Reduction and Community Electrification Program, a total portfolio investment of $2.356 billion has been mobilized to support electrification efforts across the island. Key outputs include the wiring of approximately 7,500 households and the establishment of 3,825 grid connections and the construction of some 30 kilometers of pole line infrastructure. Notably, during this financial year alone, over 3,200 houses were wired across both programs, including targeted interventions in disaster-affected communities following Hurricane Melissa. Madam Speaker, for months I sat and listened to members of this House, and by extension Jamaicans at large, being misinformed and misled regarding the reality in the increase in electricity prices. The Member of Parliament from East Kingston and Portfolio quantified the increase as moving from 26 cents to 40 cents, while failing to mention that is largely consequential of the fundamental license restructuring undertaken in 2015-2016 under his leadership and his government. Madam Speaker, these are the facts. The existing license negotiated and implemented by the former minister allowed a significant portion of the electricity system losses to be passed directly on to the hard-working Jamaicans by moving the threshold that previously limited this exposure. Madam Speaker, this decision has increased ratepayers' burden collectively to over 30 billion Jamaican dollars per year, representing approximately 20% of total electricity costs. It also weakened the incentive and accountability of the JPS to effectively contain and reduce system losses. Madam Speaker, the same right of first refusal that he now calls to abolish was in fact introduced by him in 2015. This provision facilitated the non-competitive procurement of over 288 megawatts of thermal generation, along with the floating LNG storage facility. The member is of the view that he can make a mess, leave it behind, and then blame this administration for the suffering it causes the people. I say to the Jamaican people, we know the architect of the current license, but we will get it fixed as committed. In the new license, when combined with rising global fuel prices, these decisions are among the primary drivers of today's elevated electricity costs. Madam Speaker, the implications of the right of first refusal and legacy of his leadership arrangements will persist for at least another 15 years, even after the license. Madam Speaker, the comments from the member regarding LED replacement streetlight project are also grossly inaccurate. I must inform the member and the House that this project was completed in April 22. A total of 114,223 high-pressure sodium streetlights were replaced with smart LEDs. Approximately 6,000 are outstanding pending an audit and OUR approval. All new streetlights procured by JPS are smart LED type. Similar, Madam Speaker, the smart metering provisions of 2016 license must similarly be enforced. This project is 99.7% completed since April 25. 2,000 meters are outstanding due to access issues. A total of 698,000 meters have been replaced with smart meters. Madam Speaker, this sector has shown resilience in action. Madam Speaker, I move to the transport portfolio, which remains the largest portfolio within the ministry, spanning land, maritime, aviation services, and continues to play a central role to Jamaica's economic development and resilience in action. We are advancing the revision of the National Transport Policy and Action Plan to support a modern multimodal system that strengthens infrastructure, improves connectivity, enhances safety and security, and advances sustainability. With the support from the United Nations Development Programme, the updated framework is being finalized for submission to Cabinet as a green paper in this financial year. Road safety remains a national priority, and the National Road Safety Policy is updated to reflect current realities and align with the United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety 2021 to 30. The updated framework will guide targeted interventions to reduce fatalities and injuries while strengthening coordination across Jamaica. Prior to my assumption of this portfolio, there was no allocation from traffic fines towards road safety efforts. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to announce the approval of a 5% allocation to the Ministry of Transport of traffic fines. And for last year, April 25 to March 26, $155 million was allotted to the Ministry of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications, which will be used specifically to bolster national road safety efforts, including a sustained campaign, national public relation and education campaign. It works out to about $13 million a month, and some of these funds obviously will go a far way in putting together a public education campaign and behavioral change interventions across the country. Madam Speaker, through sustained partnership among the Transport Authority, the Jamaica JCF, and Island Traffic Authority, island-wide monitoring activities have been sustained. These collaborations continue to improve order and safety within the public transportation system. During the period under review, 1,915 vehicles operated illegally were seized, and 19,413 enforcement actions were carried out against operators. The measures have strengthened compliance, improved order in the sector, and contributed to a record licensing year, reflecting a 3.8% increase over the previous year. Transport Authority implemented several strategic initiatives to improve service quality, strengthen performance management, and enhance order across the sector. And I want to indicate very clearly that the Minister of National Security has been so successful in reducing the murder rate that I'd like to work closely with him to see how we can reduce road fatalities, because that is at an unacceptable high, similar to where crime and murder was in recent years. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to indicate to the House and to the wider Jamaica that now that Melissa has settled down, that this will be one of my areas of focus over the next few months in this financial year. Madam Speaker, ride-hailing services remain a pressing concern for this government as we seek to modernize Jamaica's transport sector and ensure safe, regulated, and accessible mobility for all citizens. I'm pleased to advise that Cabinet has granted approval for the development of the National Ride-Hailing Policy, establishing a foundation for a comprehensive regulatory framework. This framework is necessary to guide the operations of ride-hailing in Jamaica. A steering committee has been established to provide oversight and ensure stakeholder engagement throughout the policy development process. Madam Speaker, the next stage is to develop a policy green paper. Work is actively underway to advance the development of this paper to be tabled in Parliament within the next 3 months. This ministry is committed to transparency, and the draft policy will be exposed to public scrutiny, ensuring that all voices of citizens, operators, and stakeholders shape the final framework. The National Ride-Hailing Policy will not only regulate emerging services, but also safeguard the public's interest, promote fair competition, and enhance mobility across the country. I am pleased to say that it is of such urgency that the Minister of Tourism and myself are planning a meeting with stakeholders based on several requests that we have had for a meeting to work to see what can be done in parallel to the policies that government is implementing. But what I can say without fear of contradiction is that there are laws that govern and legislation and regulations that govern the transport sector in Jamaica. And nobody, no matter how big they are, is going to come and undermine that. They either work within the context of that, or we will have to deal with it accordingly. Madam Speaker, I'm aware of the Jamaica public passenger vehicle PPV sector, which is under strain due to rising fuel prices as well as outstanding 60% fare adjustment. Fuel now accounts for 65% of monthly operating expenses, alongside increasing tolls, insurance, and maintenance costs, threatening the sector's sustainability. As I have said before, the issue of the 16% fare adjustment is under continued consideration, bearing in mind the effects on inflation, and of course, as they say, bad luck, every time we are at that point, we either have a hurricane or something to disrupt our economic forecasts and plans. But I give assurance that commitment was made and a commitment will be met. Long-term solutions include fleet modernization through an updated vehicle age policy, incentive for electric and hybrid vehicles, technical and financial training, and improved parking infrastructure. These interventions aim to balance the needs of operators and commuters, ensuring the continued viability of a sector critical to Jamaica's mobility, commerce, and economic resilience. The Island Traffic Authority to continue to play a central role in advancing government's priority for safer roads and improved public service delivery. For the period April 25 to March 16th, generated revenue of $13 billion. You hear that, Minister of Finance? 13.6 billion for the government of Jamaica. As a key regulatory body, the IT is mandated to administer provisions of the Road Traffic Act through the robust motor vehicle driver management systems, supported by road safety education and data-driven oversight. The authority has also continued to strengthen the regulatory framework governing motor vehicle certification, ensuring that only roadworthy vehicles are permitted to operate on the nation's road. A significant milestone was achieved with the introduction of the e-fitness system on July 21st, 2025. This system has modernized the certification process through the digitization of fitness certificates, eliminating the need for physical documents and enhancing efficiency, transparency, and regulatory compliance. This initiative represents a critical component of the authority's broader digital transformation agenda. These outcomes reflect strengthened compliance and improved operational efficiency while bolstering public confidence in the regulatory system. Madam Speaker, while road fatalities increased marginally by 2% between 24 and 25, from 365 to 374, preliminary data for 26 is encouraging, indicating a 32% reduction in fatalities to date when compared to the corresponding period last year. Madam Speaker, the authority has expanded its public education initiatives across school, workplaces, and communities, including the learner-driver education, the road safety awareness engagements, over 105, and these are aligned with national policy objectives to reduce road fatalities. Madam Speaker, I move on to one that is near and dear to me, but not so much the other side. The Jamaica Urban Transport Company remains central to public transportation. JUTC made steady progress in modernizing its fleet, improving service delivery, and strengthening governance. A key pillar of this progress is the transition from traditional diesel to cleaner, more cost-effective energy sources, an approach that has helped us cushion the impact of volatile fuel prices while advancing environmental sustainability. Today, JUTC deploys 204 buses powered by alternative energy each day, including 197 compressed natural gas buses and 6 electric buses and 1 range-extended electric vehicle, which combines rechargeable battery technology with diesel capability. Construction of a new natural gas facility at the Spanish Town Depot commenced in June 25 and was successfully commissioned in December 25. Since its commissioning, the facility has been fully operational, playing a critical role in fueling the buses, now at 2 locations, Portmore and Spanish Town. Madam Speaker, today marks 1 year since the launch of the pilot of the rural school bus program. And I must state for the record that despite the bad mind and the distasteful political rhetoric that was spread, including the member from Manchester Southern, not one single student has been killed or suffered any serious injuries while commuting on the rural school bus system. Madam Speaker, the rural school bus system has also expanded significantly since the pilot phase in the parish of Portland in May 25, making a significant and transformative policy of this government's commitment to expanding access to safe and reliable school transportation. Following the success of the pilot, the program transitioned to a phased national rollout under the management of the JUTC. Phase 1 has been successfully completed, establishing a strong foundation for continued expansion. To date, 110 rural school buses have been deployed, each selected to accommodate varying routes, conditions, and passenger needs. And the program, still in its early stages, is transporting between 15 and 20,000 students per day. Phase 2 is now underway with plans to introduce 100 new school buses. This expansion will further strengthen the program reach and ensure that more students across Jamaica can benefit. Madam Speaker, compared to 2025, we have seen a 56% reduction in the number of child fatalities from motor vehicle accidents. Madam Speaker, as a rural MP, we have seen time and time again in news stories of deaths of children and the serious injuries they suffer from unsafe and unreliable transport. Colleagues, if we saw 1% reduction, I still would have been the happiest member in this House today. Madam Speaker, members in this House stood on political platforms and sought to use fear-mongering to suggest that these buses were a threat to safety and security of our children. Madam Speaker, we have seen 8 child fatalities since the start of this year. And I can proudly state that not one of those unfortunate fatalities have been on a bus commissioned as the rural school bus program. I use this opportunity to highlight the enhanced technology and security features on the buses and urge parents to get their students registered so they can have safer and more affordable commute to school. Madam Speaker, I said it then, I said it leading up to September 3rd, and I'm going to repeat it again for all who may have missed it. We're going to give you bus after bus after bus after bus after bus. JUTC bus, school bus, every kind of bus. Oh, right, I can continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I can continue. We had agreed. Madam Speaker, our efforts regarding the safety and security of our students extend beyond the rural school bus program into our tertiary institutions. Significant strides have been made to address the transportation challenges facing tertiary student population. The primary focus of these interventions have been to improve safety and accessibility for students attending late evening classes. In direct response to the request for extended operating hours, the JUTC has successfully implemented later departure time for key student commuter routes. Madam Speaker, let me commend the staff at JUTC and the respective student bodies organizations at these institutions for the work done to make this a success. And that will be UTEC and the university. Madam Speaker, charter revenue for the period April to January total $121 million, representing 86% above budget of $65 million for the period. Revenue passengers for year to date, January 26, total 16.3 million, which is 29% below budget of 22.54. Approximately 39% or 502 million of fare revenue related to a smart card usage. and 55% or 8.83 million use smart cards to pay fares. Currently, approximately 41% of adult passengers use a smart card, compared to 100% usage among concession passengers. At the end of January, 70 active point of sale locations were operating across the KMTR, including 4 JUTC top-up points to facilitate. Madam Speaker, to prevent further losses and safeguard the company's resources, the JUTC, in collaboration with the law enforcement, has implemented a targeted and multifaceted approach. Enhanced intelligence gathering and efforts have strengthened coordination with law enforcement. The JUTC continues to work closely with the JCF and, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, since the implementation of these measures, the fare revenue year to date was 1.42 million, or 12% above the 1.26 for the same period. Plans are underway to procure another 100 additional JUTC buses to expand and renew the fleet, improve reliability, and replace aging units. The government will continue to prioritize clean and renewable energy options where feasible in support of sustainable transport. Madam Speaker, Montego Bay Metro ridership exceeded 1 million passengers for the first time in its 29-year history. Prime Minister, I'm going to repeat that for you. Montego Bay Metro, and for Minister Bartlett and the other Western members of Parliament. Montego Bay Metro ridership exceeded 1 million passengers for the first time in its 29-year history, reaching 1,003,000 and expected to rise to above 1,073. Growth was driven by 4 new routes carrying over 250 passengers, expanded service across 11 routes, and increased daily bus deployment from 10 to 13. Madam Speaker, this again demonstrates the commitment of this administration to implement sustainable transportation solutions for all Jamaica. For those of you who represent St. James and the interiors of St. James, I have the Hill Routes buses coming. Similar to how we have them for West Rural St. Andrew and East Rural St. Andrew, we find that that is a big challenge for the commuters in Montego Bay proper, getting into the hills and valleys. So that is coming on stream. Madam Speaker, Maritime and International Air Transport, Jamaica was re-elected to Category C of the Council of International Maritime Organizations. It's an important platform to represent Caribbean and small island states. This year, Jamaica will proudly mark 50 years of membership with the IMO, and this milestone speaks to decades of engagement, leadership, and commitment to the goal of the global maritime sector. Air service agreements, Madam Speaker, we continue to sign them and get them out, and we are looking to do Curacao later on this year, further strengthening regional connectivity and opportunity. Airports Authority of Jamaica, Jamaica's aviation sector led by the Airports Authority of Jamaica has demonstrated resilience in the face of significant external shocks while maintaining strong regulatory oversight and operational continuity across its network, including the Ian Fleming Airport and the domestic aerodromes. While overseeing major international gateways such as Sancho International Airport and Norman Manley, despite an early 2025 sluggish growth, improved travel advisories and increased events supported a mid-year recovery, underscoring the sector's adaptability, further strengthened by strategic initiatives, including a pending domestic air service incentive program, sustained policy leadership, and investment planning by the authority. The sector's resilience was severely tested by Hurricane Melissa, which disrupted aviation, traffic, and infrastructure, most notably at the Sancta International Airport, where tourism dependency led to passenger declines to 4.5 million in 2025 and a projected 4.2 in 2026, while Norman Manley rebounded quickly, maintaining growth from 1.8 to 1.9 million passengers. Madam Speaker, another area of success in Hurricane Melissa was the Airport Authority's response, handling from October 29th, between October 29th and December 2nd, 2025, handling 3,046 flights across all aerodromes, including 935 relief flights at the Sangster International Airport, reflecting a 26% increase. Madam Speaker, I want to commend the concessionaires and the Airports Authority for being able to restore all major airports within 24 to 48 hours, domestic aerodromes within 36 hours, and air navigation services within 24 hours, exceeding the 72-hour normal recovery target. While maintaining zero aviation accidents, operations scaled down from a peak of 22 aircraft to 8. Madam Speaker, I want to say congratulations to Airports Authority and, of course, the Norman Manley and Sangster International concessionaires. Job well done. Madam Speaker, in today's world, the strength of a nation is measured by the strength and resilience of its digital infrastructure, and the telecommunications sits at the very center of that reality. These agencies, Universal Service Fund and Spectrum Management Authority under the Ministry, as well as the Telecommunications branch at Met, continue to play a pivotal role in equipping our citizens with necessary tools and resources to thrive in an increasingly digital world. Mr. Speaker, when I addressed this Honorable House last year, it was in the aftermath of Beryl. I emphasized the importance of the preparedness and strong coordination among utility providers, particularly telecommunication operators, in anticipation of future events. At the time, I referenced the assurance given regarding to their readiness to restore service following a major disruption. Just 5 months later, those assurances were tested when we were struck by Hurricane Melissa in the areas most affected by Hurricane Beryl. As parts of St. Elizabeth, it took providers over 5 months to restore. This year, we saw measurable improvement with damage at 100% in some areas across western and southern parishes, and service was restored to most customers within 4 months. Madam Speaker, more damage, shorter recovery period. This is true resilience. Madam Speaker, this progress did not occur by chance. Telecommunications providers, in collaboration with the regulators, expanded partnership with satellite operators to bolster redundancy and ensure continuity with terrestrial networks where compromised. While services such as Starlink played a role, they were a part of a broader ecosystem that included providers like Hispasat and Eutelsat, working alongside the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management and private operators. Looking ahead, Mr. Speaker, satellite technology will remain a critical component of our telecommunication landscape. And just to mention that prior to Hurricane Melissa, the government engaged the international telecommunications to support the development of a more agile legal regulatory framework for satellite licensing. I'd like to also say, Mr. Speaker, that most of the Starlinks that were purchased by the government are now returned to the Commissioner of Police's office for safekeeping, so that in the event that we have another need, we would be able to, no, not yours. The member of parliament's own are for them to use, you have to subscribe. You have to subscribe. Can't work without you subscribe. You have to subscribe. You have to pay to subscribe. All right. You check with Flo or one of the network, and they will organize it for you. I'm glad you mentioned that, member, because it was never the intention of the government to give you and subscribe. We got a free subscription from Starlink, and when that ended, each person who was given a Starlink by the government of Jamaica has the responsibility to connect and keep the bill. So see me after this. I think the problem is the money to pay the subscription. Check with me after this. Madam Speaker, resilience demands diversity, particularly in how we expand and sustain broadband access as the government continues to build out the national network. Affordability must remain central. The high cost of international bandwidth affects households and businesses alike, limiting access to meaningful digital operators. While the government does not intend to be a market participant, it will act as a market enabler. In this regard, there is clear room for increased competition. The government's investment in subsea fiber connectivity, which commenced in the previous financial year, represents a strategic step forward. It will strengthen redundancy, especially as some existing cables approach end of life, while expanding capacity and driving more competitive pricing. Madam Speaker, we expect the new subsea cable to be operational by the end of 2027. By the end of 2027. Madam Speaker, as another pillar of resilience, the ministry has worked to finalize National Emergency Telecommunications Plan with continued support from the ITU. Plan was completed during this financial year. Spectrum Management Authority strengthened Jamaica's wireless communications during 25-26 by ensuring efficient spectrum allocation, regulatory compliance, and reliable telecommunication services essential to the economy. Universal Service Fund continues to actively reduce the digital divide and advance inclusive national development. Through a partnership with e-learning, the following devices, and you can see it on the screen, have been distributed over the past 10 years with a value of tens of millions of US dollars. The USF continues its effort to roll out 5 new public Wi-Fi hotspots, waterfront in downtown Kingston, Spalding, Manchester, Craft, Market, Kingston, Port Royal, St. Andrew, Ochoa, St. Anne. With the addition of these sites, there will be a total of 40 Connect Jamaica sites available island-wide as of March 26. To date, 100% of our major townships have been outfitted with public Wi-Fi facilities. So they were severely damaged in Melissa, and I can assure that they are on program to be restored in short order. I would say within the next 4 to 6 weeks. I think one of the issues that we have is to find out how the government through USF can monitor these units to make sure that we get value for money in terms of the maintenance contracts that are out. Madam Speaker, as I close, a total of 27 public Wi-Fi sites were impacted. To date, only 3 have been restored. The 24 remaining will be completed by June 2026. And the list of them are there. Community access points. Of the 49 community access points, 46 have already been restored, with just 3, 2 in St. Elizabeth and 1 in St. James, remaining island-wide. Madam Speaker, after Hurricane Melissa, when communities were cut off and systems disrupted, the USF moved quickly. 1,000 tablets valued at $72 million were deployed to support national damage assessments. This is real-time data collection, the real decision-making, and real support for the affected families in St. James, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, St. Anne, and Trelawney. Madam Speaker, in closing...
Your time is up. Time is up.
I can't close? They give me permission to close. Madam Speaker, in closing, today's realities have sharpened the government's resolve.
Minister.
Madam Speaker, God bless Jamaica. And God bless the Anglo-Honest great administration. May God continue.
Thank you very much, Minister. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we thank the member from Portland Western, the Minister of Energy and Telecommunications for a comprehensive, action-oriented presentation full of what has been done and more good things on the horizon. We will now turn to the member from St. Andrew South